All right, webinar is getting started. We're allowing the live folks finishing with the connection. We would like to test our audio. If you can hear me and see my screen okay, just put in the chat okay or hello or anything like that. That would let us know that you can hear us and see and everything else. Okay, perfect. Good. Okay, so chat's working. Okay, we also have a Q&A area that will monitor as well. Okay, I think we can get started. So welcome everybody to RightTool for QuickBooks Online July edition. Now we do put the version up there, version 1.013.8, because that's the latest version that we had up to the point that we're doing the webinar. You know, we're adding new things, we're doing updates to RightTool. Probably, I would say, to be fair, probably consistently at least once a week. But this is the official July webinar, and we're gonna be covering some of the things that we added during the end of May and June, and possibly a little bit of the beginning of July. So everything basically up to this point. Okay. So, quick update: we did a webinar on May 10th, and that's posted into YouTube. That was for version 12, so that would be the May update of the webinar. So if you want to see that and see all the things that were added during April and May, you can see that. You can also subscribe to RightTool's YouTube channel. Anytime that a new feature gets released, either Mark or I will create a video, we'll create a quick tutorial on it, and we'll put it on the YouTube channel. And some of those videos get also linked in the settings, but not all of them, because sometimes we'll do a video on a bunch of free features or our favorite features or something in particular. And if you want to see the actual release notes, that's the link to the release notes, which I'll show you really quick what it looks like. The release notes, every time a new version is released, and I think I'm delayed on the very last one, because last one had a couple of just a few just bug edits really for the most part. But all the features that have been added, you can see on every one of the releases here. So you have a complete history of everything we have done. At this point, probably what matters the most are the most recent changes, not so much the stuff that we did 2 months ago, right? But that's what's up there. Now let's go ahead and open up QuickBooks Online. I'll open up one of my sample files, and while that happens, let's talk about the agenda for today. So we're going to talk about first the free features that were added between June and July, end of May, June and July. Then we're going to talk about the pro features that were added end of May, June and July. We'll talk about the features that are sitting under beta for the pro users. These are the experimental features. And I think Mark and I want to maybe go a little bit deep in terms of why are we calling these experimental? Why are these still beta? And some of the challenges that we have in some circumstances when we're trying to figure out whether we're going to release it to as a regular feature or not. And then maybe if we have time, we'll talk a little bit about the things that we're working on at the moment, and then we'll leave it open for Q&A. So let's start with the features that are available in all versions. So the stuff that was added on the free version and the pro version. And let me open up QuickBooks over here. And I'll move the feature list to my other screen so I can follow along. And Mark, you want to say hi while I just finish opening up QuickBooks? Sorry, it closed right before the webinar started for some reason. I closed it by mistake.
I get it. Hello, everybody. It's nice to see you all again, or I guess exist with you all. But yeah, I always like doing these webinars and getting to chat with everybody in the chat while Hector goes into his presentation mode.
Exactly. All right. So thank you, Mark. Yeah, nice to see you again. So jump to last added to reports. So in one of these options here for the free for the settings are available across all users, pro and free. Under QBO user experience, there is an option called jump to locations button. That jump to locations button, it works in multiple areas. It works in the vendor center, it works in the customer center, it works in the chart of accounts, it works in the receipt screen. And that has already been working there for probably a couple months, but we recently added it in reports as well. Now, the reason why we added that in reports is because some people don't use the enhanced reporting, the or what we calling the enhanced reporting navigation, where every time you click on a drill down, it opens up in a new tab. So if you actually don't want to work with the enhanced reporting, then and you want to work in a single page, in a single screen, sometimes when you open up a report and you drill down and you go back, you lose the place in line you're in the report. So we added an explicit button to fix that problem. So let's go and just kind of show you what that looks like. So let's say I pull a profit and loss report, okay, and I scroll down somewhere here, and then I click somewhere, so I lose my place in line, okay, and then I go back to the report, and then there should be, if like in this particular case, because it's a bit inconsistent in terms of when this happens, I happen to land on the same area. But if I lose my place in it, so if it resets and it goes all the way to the top, there's a jump to last button that should take me straight to the last place I clicked.
Yeah, and it should work, but it is admittedly something I'm working on, that it is like racing against QuickBooks. So if you have a very fast computer, sometimes it will actually load the next screen before RightTool has the chance to actually get the spot you clicked on. Just something to keep in mind. So
okay, so what are you gonna do? You're gonna add a delay to that? Is that what you're gonna do, or?
I'm gonna figure it out.
Okay, so what you're saying is, if I understand, is that for some people, because of the speed issue, you're not getting that experience to work exactly the same.
Yeah. Now it will
Okay.
always work if you have a reports enhanced drill down turned on, but that's because of the fact that it
Right,
opens up in a
right.
new tab anyways. So
Right. So when we have enhanced reports turned on, which it should be under tab management, which is reports enhanced drill down, this will, you can still have both turned on, so you can have that jump to button as a backup, but the settings inside of reports drill down includes refreshing the report back to exactly where it is. So it's basically the jump to button is built into the refresh workflow. And also because it's opening in a new tab, the original tab is not really being touched for the most part. Sometimes people will hit refresh or go back or something like that. That could mess up and reset things. But if you have enhanced reports drill down, which opens up a new tab, you probably don't need the jump to last button in the reports, but you might still want to maybe just keep it on for the customer center, the vendor center, the chart of accounts, and receipts. Correct? Those are the 4 places that it is, Mark.
yeah.
Okay. All right. The next one is going to be a really cool one. It's called Save Button Added to All Transactions. Now, if I remember correctly, this is under QBO User Experience right here, and it's called Enable Save Button in All Transactions. So when you turn this on, okay, what essentially works different is that there's probably 1 or 2 transactions in QuickBooks, I really can't remember which one it is, that already had a save button. So on top of a save and close and a save and new and a save and send and a save and bill pay or whatever, the save and whatever the next thing is, there was 1 or 2 transactions that had just a lonely save button there. So then Mark grabbed that code and said, okay, can we just put that save button everywhere? So essentially, when you go into a transaction that traditionally doesn't have just a save button, I don't remember exactly, this is one of them.
Bank deposit is the one that I usually think of. I know there was a few, but I know bank deposit is one of them. Checks is also one. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, so if you go to checks, if you go to check right now and you have that on, you now have a save button. Okay, so prior to that, let's just test it out. So if I turn this off and do a save and refresh, when this check refreshes, the save button probably will not be there. Okay, so yeah, it's a perfect example. So no save button, standard, so no save button. So now that we turn this on, somehow we got the save button in there. Now there's another sort of like Easter egg built into this, which is there's not just a save button there. There's also a shortcut for it. So in QuickBooks, there's shortcuts for save and new, Control Alt S. That's already built into QuickBooks. Control Alt, which is a Control Shift S for the save, Mark? Control Shift, let's just try it, okay? So I'm gonna pick a payee name. I'm going to pick a,
And to be clear, Control Shift S is going to be something that's going to be in version 13.9.
well, Control Shift S, sorry, Control Alt S is a built-in QBO shortcut, and Control Shift S is the one that's okay. So that particular one is coming on the next update. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But the save button is there now, but in the next update, which should be probably no more than a week.
Literally, probably tonight.
Yeah. Oh, here's an interesting suggestion. Lisa saying, why isn't this red indicating that RightTool added this?
So the reason that this isn't red is because of the fact that, and this is a little inside baseball here, is that the save button was actually there this whole time. It's just, it was hidden. So
right.
I just unhid it.
Right. So yeah, it's not, we didn't add the button. We just removed the code that removed the button. It's kind of interesting thing.
Yeah.
So if you hit, so essentially with the new update, when you hit Control Shift S, it will trigger the save button, but I don't have that one, so I'm gonna click save, and I'll just and the cool thing about this is that you don't lose the transaction. The transaction doesn't get closed. The transaction is in fact saved, and of course you can hit save and close after, or you can hit escape and you can get out of it after it's been saved. So just a little tiny thing, it's there. I think it's useful for a lot of folks. Another thing that we added to be fair, we probably should have added this a couple of months ago when we added the feature. But when you're looking at a transaction, okay, when you click on more, you can go into audit history and you can go to transaction journal. We already have built-in shortcuts for this, which I believe is Control Shift H. Is it Control Shift H if you remember, or Control Alt H?
I am not a shortcut user.
Yeah, I have to remember what the actual shortcuts were. Actually, do I have shortcuts turned on? I don't. So let me turn on the shortcuts.
Fair enough.
But we already had added shortcuts to go straight into the transaction journal and the audit history. If I remember correctly, is Control Shift Y. And I'll go back and double check that, make sure I didn't do something doing something wrong with the shortcuts, because it's different for Mac. So it was Command Y on the Mac. Okay, so that's probably Control Alt Y or Control Shift Y on the PC. I mean, we'll go back to talk about shortcuts in a second. But so I pressed that and it took me to the journal, and of course I would go back. And the problem is that when you go back, it sends you to the report list, not to the transaction, which is actually a very silly concept that QuickBooks has. So what we did in with this feature, and which is transaction journal opens a new tab. So what we did with this is now, when you open a transaction journal, instead of having that really silly workflow of it going back to, reports, if you click back to reports, or you don't do an actual, back on your browser, it will open up the transaction journal in a new tab. So that's all we did. All we did was we overrid the button. So instead of you're overriding and closing the screen you're in, it does it in a new tab, which works really nicely in conjunction with the save button, because then you can save the transaction, view it in a journal, and then go back, change the transaction, view it in a journal, and you can just continuously do that without losing the screen, or the screen being reset. So like the two things combined, I think could work pretty interesting. Okay. The next one is called Cursor Defaults to Payee in Transactions. So that's going to be, I believe, in QBO user experience. There it is. So cursor defaults to payee in user transaction. So when we turn that on, essentially we sort of like hacked every one of the screens that is a transaction. So an invoice, a check, a bill, and then we start with the cursor on payee. And it's one of the things that drives people crazy, is that sometimes like you open up, like, let's say an expense, and the cursor wouldn't start on payee. The cursor would either be somewhere else, it would be completely unfocused. So by unfocused, I mean it the it would be like just like let me just hit escape. It would just be whoops, I hit escape twice, but let me go back to expense. I'm gonna hit escape once, okay, and it would be like unfocused. So then you have to literally try to tab your way to it. Right? So hit tab and shift tab until you get to it, or actually click on payee to get there. So now all the transactions, and if one doesn't work, make sure you let us know. But all the transactions will start the cursor on payee, so then you can literally start typing immediately.
Fun
And if you
fact
actually
about
use,
this.
yeah,
I was gonna say, fun fact about this. Oftentimes the hardest thing to program in here is focusing the keyboard or the cursor on something. I don't know why, but QuickBooks just does not want me to focus things. So
exactly.
I kind of, it's funny.
Exactly, and the other thing is that I think it's important to acknowledge is in combination with keyboard shortcuts, this stuff is really powerful. So, like if, for example, okay, so if you hit Control Alt question mark, okay, on a PC, or Control Option question mark, you get a list of all the transactions that you can open straight with a shortcut. Okay, so Control Alt I gives you an invoice, Control Alt W gives you a check. There's no shortcut for to go straight to a bill. To go straight to a bill, you could use the RightTool shortcut. So let's click on the shortcuts list, and then let's find out what the RightTool shortcut is. And this is Control Alt or Control Command on the Mac, and then a B. So if you were doing things in combination, so I do Control Command B, that opens up a bill. So that's all keyboard shortcuts. And then the bill opens up with the cursor already focused on vendor. Then I can start typing my vendor's name and start tabbing away. So this whole thing, it's a little bit, it's a small thing, but when you actually start using the combination of keyboard shortcut, out of focus, and tabbing, then you start getting a little bit of that desktop feel where things just seem to flow a little bit smoother and nicer. Okay. All right. The next one's going to be improved bank creation workflow. Now, this is actually a big feature, and it combines something we have already created in the past, and then we added a couple more
Has it
things
really
into
been
it.
that long since we've done a webinar?
Yes, it's been 2 months since we did a webinar. Yeah. It's been a long time. So, so the improved bank rule creation workflow, it's a really important one because it's both for like the accounting professional and the small business owner. I think both parties can benefit from this really well. Also, if you do it strategically speaking. So we put it under error prevention for that specific reason, because we're sort of thinking that if the end user is being sort of locked out of doing certain things while creating a bank rule, or being forced to behave a certain way when creating a bank rule, it might prevent just bogus bank rules or more transactions that mess things up. So we're putting everything in the under error prevention, under improve rule creation workflow, and I'm going to turn them all on and explain each one of these to you, so we can kind of see exactly what that means, right? So we have default auto add, okay, and then we have disable auto add, and these two are different, by the way. Then we have default bank text, default bank rules as to bank text. Then we have do not add memo on transaction-based rule. Then we have rules must have payee, and then we'll have transaction-based rules default to all bank accounts. Okay, and what's interesting about these is that some of these work in brand new rule creation from scratch, and some of these work in when creating bank rules from in an existing transaction. So Mark, let's start with creating bank rules from scratch. So which of these, if I remember correctly, which of these are the ones that are bank rules from scratch? For sure is going to be default bank rules to bank text.
And that's actually somebody actually mentioned that they thought that was a typo. That is what we mean, blank rules to bank text. That's what we mean when we say you go to the rules page and you create a rule from
like a rule from scratch. Yeah.
So
so default blank rules to bank text, that's one that works from scratch. Rules must have payee. I believe that's for both from scratch and in there. Okay. And then transaction-based rules. Okay, so this is transaction-based rule. This is transaction-based rule. Disable auto add and default auto add off. I'm gonna leave that one off for now. So let's just start with these. Let's start disable auto add. We're gonna do default blank rules to bank text, or it could also be called default to bank text when creating rules from scratch or something like that. And then we have rules must have payee. Okay, so let's go back into QuickBooks. Let's go into our banking and let's go into our rules. And right now we're strictly talking about creating rules from scratch. So if I go to new rule, okay, so first thing that happens is when I create a new rule, it defaults to all bank accounts. Okay, so it just prevents it going from some random account, and this becomes much more true, or it becomes more relevant when you're doing a transaction-based rule. So I'm going to call this rule Starbucks, for example. Okay, and then I'm going to come down here, and under category, I'm going to put, let's say, meals, and then payee in this case is blank, and then we have to go back there for a second. Payee is blank, and then when I click on save, it should, let me just make sure this is turned on. Give me a second. So we have rules must have payee. Okay, so this is all turned on. I'm gonna save and refresh just in case I didn't. So I'm gonna do it one more time. So I'm gonna go to new rule. Okay, so this calls
Well, and
Starbucks.
you probably need to wait until RightTool loads before this actually works. So that's just
Okay,
something to keep in mind. So now
it
if
was
you press
loaded.
new rule, it should
Oh,
probably
okay.
find.
Yeah, so new rule. So we go to Starbucks. Okay, and then under here it's starting with this is not this might not be working. Let me I'm gonna close out for a second.
Honestly, when it comes to bank rules and everything,
Yeah, let's
there's a chance.
let me just go back into it for a second just to make sure that it didn't load, because it didn't seem to be activated. Give me 1 second. Let's go back into bank feed. Let's
The
go to
fun of
bank
working with a Chrome
rules.
extension every once in a while.
Let's go to new rule. Okay. So this is supposed to start with bank text. So
Yeah.
something's off here. I'm going to test one more thing really quick. Let me switch to business view to see if this screen changes a little bit.
Michael McClellan is saying he's having the issue as well, which means that it probably is something that maybe something just changed ever so slightly in the rule section. So everybody's probably having that issue.
Yeah,
Which just means I get to fix that.
So something from the versioning. Let me change.
Oh, never mind. He was talking
I'm,
about
I'm
something
gonna
else.
I'm gonna change company files for a second just to make sure, because if this feature is not working, we have to go back and check that. Okay. All right. So right now, I think we're gonna have to skip. Whoops. You think that has something to do with it?
No, I don't
Yeah.
know if that has it, but
Let's try. Let me try again.
yeah.
All right. I just noticed I didn't have it turned on up here, so that could have been the issue.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah.
All right. There it is. All right. All right. Scratch that. All right. So improve rule creation workflow. You must make sure you have the parent rule turned on first, okay? And then we're gonna turn on disable auto add. We're gonna turn on default bank rules to bank text, and rules must have payee. We're gonna showcase these three inside of the process of creating a rule from scratch. So I'm creating a rule from scratch, not from the transaction screen. I'm gonna click a new rule, and multiple things are happening here. The first thing that happened is this changed from description to bank text. So it automatically defaulted to something that almost every single person, when they create bank rules from scratch, they go in there and they make that change. The second thing here is I'm gonna call this let's say Starbucks, and then let's say the bank text is gonna be Starbucks, and let's say I skip payee completely, like I'm ignoring it. I don't want to use it, whatever it is. I'm skipping it completely, and then I'm not going to put a payee. And then notice that on the bottom there's no save button, so I do not have the ability to save or create a rule. Basically, we killed the save button, we got rid of it because there was no payee in there. And what I have an interesting one about this is there was a user that had this turned on and called QuickBooks tech support and said, "Hey, my save button for rules is it's missing." And they went through maybe 6 or 7 different tech people, and they couldn't figure it out. And they couldn't replicate the problem until they realized that it was our extension. And that was the first time somebody from Intuit called me and asked me, "Hey, why is your extension breaking our QuickBooks?" And I was like, "Well, that's arguable. What we're, who's breaking what, but that's a different story. Anyway, so that's what it does. It does not allow you to save. Does not allow you to save it
This is
if
also
there
the
isn't a
story of why
payee.
we don't let payee must require payee as a default feature, because
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, exactly. So now that I put a payee, then the save button turns on. Now the other thing that you want to look at is, notice that I have no checkbox for auto add. You notice that? Okay, auto add is not there. The button's not there. I mean, there's some text there. I'm not sure why the text is there, but there's no button. So essentially, what we did is we turned off auto add, we defaulted to bank text, and rules must have pay. That's what we did. So we think that if an end user, like an accountant or a power user, has this turned on and has those three settings turned on, this is going to enhance the rule creation process, because again, it will prevent the problem of either creating an auto add or a rule without a payee, or doing it using this description instead of bank text, because they just don't know better. They don't know the difference, and I guarantee you a lot of power users don't even know the difference between these two. So like I usually always want to use bank text when creating rules from scratch. Okay, so that's what it is. Now the second part of improved rule creation workflow is we're going to talk about. I'm going to turn this off. And I'm going to leave rules as a payee. I'm going to put do not add memo to transaction-based rule. I'm going to put transaction-based rules defaults to all bank account, and default auto add off. Okay, so default auto add off is something else completely. So we're going to walk through that in a second. So now we're going to talk about the dynamic of working with a transaction-based rule. So a rule that's coming from something you downloaded from the bank, which is a different workflow entirely. So I have this transaction here that came from the bank, and then I can create a rule from here. So if I went ahead and click on create rule, we have fixed a couple things. Number one is here. Did we use that one? I think all, where's default all bank accounts. Okay, we might have to, that might be one that we have to fix when it comes to a credit card transaction. But the first thing that we did is notice that in this particular case, because it's a credit card, this is supposed to go to all bank accounts, and that's not working on this particular workflow for some reason, but that's what this one feature is supposed to do. This one that says, where am I? Default to all bank accounts. So Mark, we'll check on that, because that one didn't seem to click, but
yeah,
that was an important piece of
the
it.
rules are easily the most finicky part of this whole program.
Right.
It's
And
always
then,
something weird.
so a couple of things that's sort of happening live here is, so then we have the rule requires a payee, and then the replace bank memo. This one's also do not add memo in transaction-based rule. I think this one's also not working. This is supposed to be blank, right?
Yeah.
Right, that's supposed to be blank. So two things that were supposed to be functional. Again, I apologize for that. We'll probably fix it for the next update. Is this all bank accounts are supposed to come in by default, and this is supposed to be blank. And also the auto add starts as off. Okay, so a lot of times what happens is the auto add starts turned on, and there's another workflow here that let's just test to make sure that's working. So let me do it with Apple. So I'm gonna do it with a couple of transactions. So I'm gonna do Apple and then hit add, and then I'm gonna do one more Apple, hit add, and okay. So this screen it changed a little bit, but for some people they get a different screen that automatically suggests to create a rule, and that screen that automatically pops up and that suggests to make a rule, that screen has auto add turned on. Okay, so when we have this feature, this RightTool feature turned on, this checkbox is not on by default. Okay, so that's essentially what we fixed. Now, QuickBooks is editing and changing this screen,
Which
and
is
then
good for
maybe,
them.
yeah, which is great. Yeah, so hopefully when everybody gets this version of the screen, the updated version of the screen, if Intuit builds it in, so the auto, I mean the automatic confirmation is by default off, great, and there will be no need for the right tool feature. But for the time being, if you get the previous screen that automatically starts with it turned on, right tool will turn it off for you. Again, we're trying to like prevent people from automatically creating rules that are automatically being added. Okay. Um, and really, that's it. That's it for the rules creation workflow. Again, the do not add memo wasn't working on this file, and the all bank accounts wasn't working on this file.
Hmm.
I'm gonna switch to my other file and just test it there for a second, just to see if maybe there's different versions of QuickBooks having different screens and bank rules essentially. So let's just test that out for a second. Let me go to transactions, and let's see.
That's
So
where
if
they
I take
put bank feeds in this. Okay. Anyways.
all right, so let's go to this transaction here, and then we go to create rule. Okay, so yeah, my auto add is automatically off, which is good. The bank text is coming in here. That's supposed to start blank, okay, because of that setting, and this is supposed to start with description because it's not a rule that we're creating from scratch. So we're not gonna override any
Yeah.
transaction-based rule. We're only gonna override, blank rules or rules that we're starting from scratch. And of course, if we take the payee out, that save button will go away, right? So the this feature that's supposed to send this back to all bank accounts is probably not working because something changed in this screen, but we're gonna get back and the idea is to get back and bring it up so this checkbox is automatically here, and this starts blank. Okay, that's kind of like how we would want that workflow to work. Okay, so that's improved rule creation workflow. Mark, do you have any comments on any of this stuff?
Just that, as always, the uh yeah, bank rules are something that's always kind of in flux. They're always changing a little bit of something every time. So just if you ever do have a problem with it, let us know and we'll
Yeah.
fix it, because usually it's not hard to fix it. It's just that you have to know that you need to fix it. So
Right. Yeah. What happens is that into it again, it changes one little piece of code on the screen. You don't see it visually, and it prevents RightTool from doing it. We're not
completely fair.
accusing them of sabotage because I think QuickBooks should always be improving their product, but sometimes they make these weird changes that it's like really it doesn't make a lot of sense. All right, the next feature I want to talk about is called it's right here. It's called, let's go into, it should be QBO user experience. Yeah, it's
And
good.
while you're
So
selecting this, I want to be clear because it's been asked a couple of different times in a couple of different ways. If you change any of these like rule features that make it so you have to do a rule a certain
new
way, it
rules
will
only.
only affect new rules. It will not
Right.
affect anything in the past. We don't even have the power to do that.
Right, to batch
So
edit rules. Yeah. We have a different feature that allows us to filter the rule screen.
yeah.
We should make it easier for you to make edits, with filtered and focus. But no, there's no way for us to go back and change rules or change rules retroactively or change transactions that were generated by rules retroactively. Just not possible. Okay, the next feature here is called customer P&L link, and this is very simple. Basically, what we've done is we added a quick filtered report to do a profit and loss by customer when you're looking at a particular customer. So let's say I'm sitting here and looking at this customer, ABC customer North location, is this little button here that says P&L. Okay, we added that. It's in red. You click on that, it opens up a new tab, and it opens up a P&L by customer just for that customer. Of course, it will use the default dating sequence. I don't have any transactions for the last quarter, but if I expand all dates, you see that it did a P&L report just for that particular customer. So believe it or not, a lot of people, especially in construction, project-based business, find this particular feature useful. As a matter of fact, it was a user that suggested that.
Honestly, I love it. I think it's a cool little feature, honestly. So
Yeah, for sure.
I like it when there's features that are small but kind of work nice and smooth. So
agree. So we have default print PDFs in landscape. Okay, that should be under where is that? That's in QBO
it's in QBO user experience for sure.
Okay, so it's called default print reports in landscape. So some people, especially when they pull like a P&L by customer or P&L by class or something that that it's probably going to be more wide than long. So let's just do a quick example here. Let's run a report. Let's do a P&L by class. Okay, something that would be sort of wide by default. Let's just do last month and click run. Okay, so this particular report, because it's got a whole bunch of columns, by default you will want to see this landscape. So in QuickBooks Online, there's no way, there's no setting to set up where, you know, how the report gets printed. So we added sort of a little macro here that if you turn it on, instead of it starting in portrait mode, it automatically changes to landscape mode. So it just changes you that, it just saves you that little step in there, but that's what it is. So defaults to landscape instead of portrait. Portrait is obviously the default for all of them. Okay. All right. The next one that we added, and we added this one right at the end of the last webinar, and I think that we may have covered it maybe like in things that we're working on. So you might already been seeing a version of this. This one's called Copy Original Bank Memo from Banking. Actually, hold on one second.
The fun of summer vacation. Don't we all love it?
Sorry, I got kids screaming in the background. Okay, all right. So so this is called Copy Original Bank Text from Banking. Now this one, it's great, and this is we debated to put this one in a pro because this is kind of sort of a cleanup tool, but we ended up leaving it in free because we took something else that was free into pro. So this is called bank memo copy in transactions, and this one I kind of have to set it up. Okay, so essentially imagine that you are in you or a client, and this is kind of like maybe why we're putting it in error prevention. You and a non-avid user is going to enter a transaction from banking, but it's going to change or modify the memo for whatever reason. Again, there could be multiple myriad of reasons why somebody would go in here and put something else. I put something like gas for truck or something like that. Okay, and then here on the vendor customer, maybe they put a payee that maybe is wrong. Okay, and this can happen. Right? Maybe they confused it with a payee that was similar, or they created a new payee that's redundant. Whatever it is, the user puts a payee that is not 100% indicative of what the actual transaction is, and then also overwrites the memo. What ends up happening, right? So when you add a transaction like this, and this transaction is 42.78. So let me pull it up here. So let's do 42.78. So imagine a world where you're looking at this transaction, okay, and you're looking at it, and you're like, I'm not sure if this is what it's supposed to be. Like, you're looking at the transaction, you're looking at the payee, you're looking at the description. Nothing really like sort of like helps to like double check if this is correct. So we've done two things. One, right now in QuickBooks Online with our RightTool, if you were to click here as one online bank match, you can actually see what the original bank description is. You get that in there. However, you would have to click here, okay, to see it. So what we've done is, if QuickBooks, if RightTool notices that the memo is different than the original bank memo, it puts the bank memo in red to let you know, this is the stuff that actually came from the bank. Okay, so that's like number one. First of all, it shows you that. The second thing that's really cool is if you click on that, it will go in there and paste that memo back in the memo line, but you won't lose what you had already. Like whatever you put there already, and it just adds it towards the end. So it just kind of adds like sort of like one more layer of security there, where you have the original information and then the bank memo. So then after you click on save and you go to report, you'll be able to see it and that sort of thing. So that's pretty cool. And then we debated whether this should be prepended or appended. Some people say, look, I think I want the original memo first, and then I want the stuff that was added second. So we've had people giving us both pieces of feedback. I think that from some of the voting that we did on Facebook, I think pre-pen, like the way it is now, is the way most people wanted it. But if enough people say, hey, no, I think I prefer the original memo and then the other notes after because of whatever, that's how I look at it on reports or whatever, then we could probably add a sub setting that it would be, hey, a pen instead of pre-pen. But for now, it's pre-pen. Okay. All right. Next feature is called, and this is the last of the free features or all the. It's funny
It's
in the
funny.
chat.
The
There's
last of the free features.
yeah. So right now in the chat, there's a debate going on whether it should be before or after, which is kind of interesting. So the last one is called auto print reconciliation reports. Okay, and that should be under QBO user experience. And this is called auto print reconciliation report. Fun fact: this started with as a pro feature, but then it became one of those sort of insignificant, not so significantly from a programming perspective, that we just made it a free feature. But let me show you how that works. So let's say we are gonna reconcile an account. So I'm gonna reconcile this one.
And you'll see why we turn this one off by default.
Yeah, it's off by default. You have to go in there and turn it on. Yeah. So let's say, for example, I'm going to reconcile exactly what we have now, and I go through my reconciliation. So essentially what happens is the screen automatically opens up the reconciliation report, but many people forget to like open the reconciliation report and print it, right? They just reconcile and they go next. So this saves, I think it's about 3 clicks that it saves, like opening up the report, opening up the screen. Unfortunately, we can't automate the next step. Like you literally have to pick what printer you're gonna print from and then click on print. So that last piece you have to do, but that's essentially what we're doing, which is we're flowing through that. Now, a quick question, Mark. If I have landscape by default, it won't do it with this. It will only do it with
it won't do it with this.
Because it's a different type of report.
It's a different kind of printing. Completely entirely different kind of print. So and it's also, it's more than just the clicks. What also happens is if you print this report normally, it actually takes you to that screen. It's kind of like the audit loop problem all over again, where it takes you to a screen. You can't actually go back to where you wanted to go. So we also open that up in another screen as well. So that's the other side benefits.
So I have another tab where it's like, this is where it normally would land, right? And then it's a completely different tab that's going through the printing process. So that one has received a lot of accolades. A lot of people like this because even though it's 2023 and technically we shouldn't be printing stuff, people still print these things. But printing also could mean saving it as a PDF. So depending on your workflow, like, so if you print it to an actual computer or save a PDF, it works the same way. Okay. Can we automate the PDF being created? That we can't, right? Not this type of report.
I don't think so. No.
Okay. All right. Well, that's worth asking. Okay, so that's it with all the free features. So everything in here. It's available in all versions of RightTool. Are there any questions or anything, Mark, before we jump into the pro features?
I don't think there's any question specifically that needs to be answered here.
Okay. All right.
I'm answering a question from Paul right now that's inside the chat.
Right. Okay. So next set of features, these are all the things that are available in Pro. Okay, and there's a lot of them. Okay, so there's ability to quickly zero out inventory items. There's bulk delete transactions from vendor customer detail screen. There's copy down any detail field in transactions. That's a big one. Copy down is one of my favorites for sure. There's batch edit multiple transactions from the register. There's highlight edited transactions in the reconcile page. I want to ask you, Mark, about that because I still yet to see the actual, like, the reason why people want that. So maybe we'll get some insights in terms of, the person that suggested this. Then we have find and replace text in description memo fields in transactions. There's copy duplicate deposit. So just enable like the duplicate button in deposits, which wasn't enabled before. Extending the matching range in bank feeds. It's called advanced transaction matching. Then we have a transaction customer detail link, and this would be in the I believe this is in the register, correct? We'll go back
Transaction
and check.
vendor customer detailing. No, that's
Yeah, I
inside
think,
of like most transactions. It's been weird. So
yeah, we'll go
we
back
had to
and check
scale
on that
that
one.
back a little bit.
Yeah, and then remove zero amount lines from journal entry. So there's a lot of stuff. Like the pro features are pretty mind blowing. Okay, so let's go through them. Okay, so let's go. Let's turn everything off here. Okay, and we'll turn everything off here. And we'll turn everything off here and turn everything off here. Okay, so let's start with ability to zero out all inventory items. So that's in Accountant Pro. And or is it Accountant Pro? It should be in account. Oh, it should be in batch. Sorry, it's on batch, and then it says inventory quantity adjustment enhancements. That's actually the name of the feature. So inventory quantity adjustment enhancements. Let me do two things. Let me select all my inventory items and also zero them out. So I'm gonna click save. Then I'm gonna go into an inventory adjustment screen. So I'm gonna click on the gear menu. Actually, it's under the new button, and then go to inventory quantity adjustment. Okay, and the first thing, the first kind of issue here is if you wanted to list all your inventory items here, you literally have to go select the first one, then the second one, then the third one. It's kind of a really long process, a super long and tedious process to list all your inventory parts in this screen. You have to do one by one. So there's the first button is called add all active items. And what this will do is when you click on that, RightTool will go through the cycle of actually selecting each of these items for you and enabling them. So it's actually just bringing them up onto the screen. Okay. Some have quantities associated with them. Some don't. It's just, are they active? Yes. Then you will bring them up. So now once it's done, okay, all the items get added into here. Okay. So this is my entire list of items. And let's say wanted to do one more thing. So first thing by itself, showing them all, it's really valuable because you can sit there and you can make an adjustment. Okay, so that's like solution number one, making it easier to make an adjustment. Solution number two is making them all zero. So if I click on make all zero, basically it automatically puts them on zero for you. So if I click on save, it zeroes out all the inventory in one shot. Okay, so it's two buttons, show them all up in one shot. You can do one by one, or press the button to make them all zero and zero them out in one shot. Multiple reasons why you might want to do that or you don't want to do that. I'll leave that piece up to you. We'll just give you the tools to do that if you need that.
Yeah, and that's also just because of the fact that I see there is a little bit of a debate about printing reconciliation reports. That is a lot of what we're doing. It's not necessarily we're creating everything that everybody needs to use all the time, but we just want to give people the options to do whatever they need to do to fit whatever their workflow is or whatever their client needs are. So
yeah,
that's the reason.
Everybody has their own workflow, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Next one is called bulk delete transactions from customer vendor detail page. Okay. So once we turn that on and then we click save and refresh. Let's say I go into my customers page. So I'm going to go into customers and I'm going to go into any specific customer. So let's say I'm going to go into this customer and I may have some like transactions I don't want in here. Okay. So what I can do is I can select multiple transactions I don't want. So I select 1, 2.
Fingers crossed that they haven't
3,
changed too much
4.
on this screen.
Yeah, exactly. And then hidden in here under batch transactions, there's a bulk delete button in red. Okay. So it's hidden in the drop down menu. Okay. So we go to bulk delete. Okay. And then we click and it gives you a warning. And this is a RightTool warning. Hey, are you sure you want to do this? And then I click OK. And we'll go one more time, make sure you're okay. Then click OK, and then it'll actually go in there and open up each transaction and delete it. Okay. Some reason I didn't do the last one. I don't know why.
Well, I put a specific thing in there, and actually, it might have deleted it if you refresh the page. I don't know why. But occasionally it won't show something that's been, or it'll show something. Oh, maybe it's just one of those ones that can't be deleted for some reason.
Yep. Yeah, it could be.
Yeah, clearly there's something QuickBooks doesn't want to do with that.
Let me see. Let me try the regular delete process. Okay, it won't delete the transaction. There must
Yeah.
be something with a deposit.
Oh, there's a
Maybe
product or service in there that's been deleted, and then you know how QuickBooks does with
right.
that. Like,
I think it's maybe because it's tied to a deposit that's already been deposited. That's most likely. But yeah, so it doesn't. It can't override the regular tools. Like if QuickBooks doesn't let you delete it, you can delete it. And it's not like it can't. I remember, RightTool does not go into like the back end and do anything that you're not like seeing on the screen. Everything is happening, and you have the same exact um, same exact restrictions in both sides. Same thing with vendor. If I go into vendors and I pick a particular vendor here, let's say this one, okay, and then I select multiple transactions, batch actions, should be in this one. I wonder why not on this one. So I worked in the customer screen, and then we have to go back and check. It should be in both transactions, but that you saw how I worked in customers. We're
yeah.
gonna go back and check if there was something in the vendor side that didn't that's not allowing to do that. Maybe something might have changed in the screen, something small. But you saw it on the customer side, so it's going to behave exactly the same once we figure out why it's not working on the vendor side. Okay. All right. So the next one is copy down any detail field in a transaction. So I think the best way to illustrate that is going to be through a journal entry. So this feature is under Batch Pro, and it's called, no, it's not this one. It's called Copy Down Values of Transactions. And there's also a sub option to control the number of rows. For the time being, we're going to turn off controlling the number of rows, and we're just going to work with copy down, and then we'll go back and kind of show you what controlling the number of rows mean. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save that, and then I'm going to open up a journal entry. So let's open up a journal entry here. And I want to copy a previous journal entry. I'm just going to grab this journal entry here. And I'm going to, let's say I'm going to copy it. Okay. So imagine a world where you have a journal entry in front of you, or you have an invoice, or you have a bill, you have anything in front of you in which you need to change the name, the location, the class, any of these, actually even the description in batch. So for example, if I want to change the description and put something else, let's say I want to put here July adjustments to match audit or something like that. Okay. And then I want to assign it Hector Garcia and put today's date 7/12/2023 at whatever it is, 1 p.m. Eastern. Okay. So I change one, and then I'm like, you know what? I want this to be throughout the entire journal entry or bill or invoice. Okay. So what we do is you have this little button here up here in the top right next to the gear menu. It's a red next to the gear button. So not the gear button, but the down arrow. That's the copy down tool. So if I click on that, then it's going to ask me, hey, which of these would you like to replicate? Then you click on the specific field. So I'm going to click on the very first description line, and it says, hey, are you sure you want to update all the descriptions to match this description that's in here? I click OK, and boom, it goes down and adds it to every single line in your transaction. Every line that has an account in it anyway, because the account is how it knows what to do. It also works the same way with like customer jobs. So let's say this is going to be this customer. So I click on copy down, click on that, click OK, and boom, everything gets changed. Location works the same way. So I'm going to pick Canada, click copy down, click on that, OK, and boom. And this is, let's say the class, we're going to put this long class 7, copy down, click on that, OK, and boom, and it does it throughout the whole thing. It also works with amounts, which is really interesting too. So if I put a 0 here and a 0 here, and I want to go to copy down, click on the blank, and then it'll zero everything out for me. Okay, so it's pretty interesting, pretty cool how it can do it with that too. Okay, it won't do it with accounts, just not because the accounts at the moment is it's how we know how many lines you have. Okay, so this is exactly what it can do. Okay, now I'm gonna go ahead and save this, and I'm gonna show the next feature, which is, and I'm gonna skip the order a little bit, and then I'm gonna show the next one, which is the find and replace. Okay, find and replace is similar. Okay, from the moment that you're batching these. Okay, and again, both of these are in Batch Pro. These are Pro version of the tools. Okay. And then in here, we're going to use the exact same example here. So in here, let's say I wanted to replace something from description. It won't work with, customer, class, location. It won't do that. It's just description. So let's say, for example, I'm going to make a duplicate of this. Okay, I'm just thinking of maybe a different circumstance where I only want to change, instead of just copying down, a particular field, I want to just maybe replace this with something else. So I'm just gonna copy this for a second. Then I'm gonna click on the little magnifying glass in the top, that's supposed to be a find and replace. I'll type this and I can select whether or not I want this to be case sensitive. And then I'm gonna replace it, let's say, with something else. Let's say I want to replace it with September 30th, 2 p.m., something like that. And then I go click on replace all, and then it will go in there and change it anytime you see that in there. Okay, so anytime you see that in there, it'll just do a find and replace. And again, it also works in bills and invoices and any of those transactions. So this is find and replace is specifically for text, for description text, where copy down works both with text and also drop down menus.
Yeah.
Mark, any observations on that?
Just as an FYI, that QuickBooks is going through a new UI change in some of those pages. So some clients might have a weird different version of journal entries or expenses or invoices and stuff. We do not currently have a fix for that, but as soon as we have a file that actually has that new updated like UI, we will work on getting those features put back in. So
which features are not working? Is it
basically any feature that's a journal entry feature is not working
Okay.
under the new UI that they're doing,
And
but it's being very slowly released.
And the users can't tell because the screen is identical, right? Like
you can kind of tell, especially because if you have the new screen, there will be a feedback button at the top right corner.
okay.
It looks a little different, but it looks mostly the same. So,
so it's hard to tell that it's a new interface, right?
Yeah.
Right. What's interesting about this is that at any point in time, you can have a journal entry screen that has maybe 6 different versions, right? There's 3 production versions of QuickBooks Online, plus maybe possibly an accountant view version and a business view version. So Mark has to program it differently for each screen, and also has to build a program that can read which screen you're in to figure out where to put it. And then if they change one thing, we gotta go figure out which one they changed. And if we don't have samples of all the files so we can test it, it's difficult for us to even know. So it just makes it challenging. It makes it challenging for sure. I have a question here from N. Jackson that says, is there any way to get the new journal entry to open in a new tab?
Okay. But before you go into this, Hector, I'm going to admit something. I did something behind your back, and you're going to have to forgive me for that, which is the fact that I did make it so the default is not that you open a new tabs when you click things inside of the RightTool sidebar, only because it makes things a little bit faster for people. If everything loads in the same screen, we still want people to be able to turn on open a new tab. I just think that for people who are first getting used to RightTool, having a billion tabs open at one time was overwhelming for them, at least from what I could gather.
That's okay. So N. Jackson saying, is there any way to get the journal entry to open up in a new tab automatically? So we can't pick and choose which of these open in a new tab. So it's either if we were to program something like this, it would be all or none. You can right click and do a new tab, or you can control click, or if you use the RightTool navigation, so instead of using the new button on the left hand side, you use the new button on the right hand side. It's the same new button, it's just in RightTool. If you use this one, then we can program it so when you click on it, instead of opening on the same screen, I'm just gonna go back here for a second. I can go into settings, I can go to tab management, and I can put to where it says
RightTool shortcuts.
RT shortcuts. Yeah, RightTool shortcuts, open a new tab. So if that is turned on, essentially anything that you click on the RightTool on the right hand side of the screen, whether it's one of the favorites or it's something that you click in through the new button, if you click on that, then that goes into a new tab. But there's no way to like just choose just journal entries to open in new tabs. That would be programmatically complex, because like if we open that can of worms, then there's gonna be people say, oh wait, journal entries and deposits and this, and then we have to write all just a lot of code And every single code that we write, it could slow down QuickBooks. So slow down the entire workflow. So we have to pick and choose what code we're gonna add in here. Like it needs to like net add instead of remove speed. Or that's kind of a big thing for us. The speed is a big thing for us. Okay, next one we're gonna do is batch. It's in Batch Pro. Let me turn these off. This one is batch edit in register. Okay, and this feature has been existed already for about 2 or 3 months, but it had a major revamp recently. Okay, just a complete redesign in UI, and we added some functionality. So let's talk about that. So I'm gonna go into the register, and then we're gonna look at a particular bank account. So let me just grab a bank account here. So this works with any account in your register. It works best with bank and credit card transactions, of course. And then we can change multiple transactions in one shot. So the first thing you want to do is click on the batch button. Now, if the batch buttons are messed up, they're not showing, or maybe showing the next step, you can just click on reset batch buttons and sort of get you back to where it's supposed to be. So I'm going to click here on batch, and then I have two options. I can either select all, or I can do edit. Edit is the actual button that we want to do to batch edit, and select all would be to select all the transactions or unselect. But if you're in this screen and you click on reset batch button, it'll send you back to just a regular batch button if that's not enabled yet. So I'm going to click on batch here, and then I can manually select a couple transactions to change. So let's say I want to change this 5 transactions, and maybe I want to add a payee because I put the wrong payee, or I missed the payee, whatever happens to be. So I select 4 transactions, or what's also really cool is I can select one, hold the shift key, and then click on the last one that I want to select, and it should select all of them, but we'll figure that one out. Is it shift? Is it shift, Mark, is supposed to do it?
Yeah, should be hold shift and press it.
Mine's not working with the shift, but that's
Maybe it's a Mac
okay.
thing. I'll test it out on Mac real quick.
Yeah, could be a Mac thing. Okay, but just so you can manually select them all, or click on, you can select all, unselect all, or do it. But we'll fix the shift click. I wonder if it's related to the
keyboard shortcuts. You might need to turn that on in accessibility. That might be what's happened.
Yes, that's exactly right. Yeah. So the rule of thumb: never turn off keyboard shortcuts. Okay, I would say that's exactly what it is. Exactly what it is. So I'm gonna click on batch again. Let me just
time to find out.
Resort this. So let's go batch again.
Nope.
Not edit yet. So
yeah, ironically, this is the situation where you'd want to reset.
Yep. So I select one and then hold the shift key. No. All right. We'll go back and check that. But I'm selecting a couple here, and then I'm gonna go into edit, and then I get this new interface. So in this interface, these are all the things that I can edit. There's numbers there because if I want to just select location, I can press 7 on the keyboard, 6 on the keyboard, 5 on the keyboard. So the number just basically, just by putting the number, it allows me to select that. But you can do it manually. So let's say I want to change the payee on these transactions. You can change the reference number if there's a reference number that you don't like. I know sometimes you will have a reference number that is a bunch of like check numbers, and you don't want them, so you can just reset them to nothing, like just delete them completely. You can change the date. I've had some people where they entered a bunch of transactions from 2023 and they're supposed to be 2022 or something like that. So you can batch change the date. You can't change just the year, like it would just be the entire date being changed. And then we can also add a memo. We can replace the memo, which is what 5 does, or we can append to the current memo. So if there's something there that you like, then we just add more stuff at the end, similar to how we did with the free feature of copy original bank memo to transactions. We can also change class, locations, and the reconcile status. So we'll do reconcile status separately in a second. So I'm gonna click on close, and then basically a red or pinkish screen kind of opens here, letting you know that this is a RightTool batch editing function. And then I'm gonna pick, let's say, the actual payee that I wanna put in there. And then I'm gonna put the memo. So I'm gonna put changed on 7/12/23 by HG, something like that. And then I can put anything else in these, but it's not gonna do anything because I only told that I wanted to change the payee and the memo, which are the ones that are black. Okay, so this is basically just mimicking the new transaction creation screen. So that's why they're all showing there, but only the black ones are the ones that you told that you were going to change. If you click on change edit fields, and you can enable more fields to change. So let's say I also want to change the class, then class opens up and I can pick the class. Okay, then I can click on confirm batch and then click OK. And then all those 5 transactions will basically be changed in batch. So you just see it. It's like sort of like one transaction at a time. Okay. So the other thing that we changed, and this we did this when this happened, is there used to be a batch unreconcile button where you can basically, if you have anything under R or C, so it's been already cleared or it's been reconciled, we can go back and fix that. So let's see if we're going to sort these by whether they're reconciled or not. So you see all these things that have R's in it. You can actually remove these R's. That means that you can force them out of your reconciliation. Okay, so I'm going to go to batch, select, let's say, multiple transactions here. Shift click not working is making me nuts. Okay, and then
No, for sure.
and then I can go to edit, and then I can go to reconcile status. So the only thing I'm doing is I'm changing the reconcile status, going to close. So only the reconcile status is black. So then I can put here, okay, I want them all cleared. I want them all reconciled. I want them nothing. Okay. Then I click on batch confirm and click OK. And it'll go in there and unclear all these transactions. Now, there's an entirely different conversation as to why you would do that, or should you do that, or should you like really understand what you're doing prior to doing that. That's all absolutely true. But for the people that know that that's what they want. They want to batch unreconciled transactions, or batch force the reconciliation in there, or batch unclear them, or batch clear them, whatever it is. You can do that with this batching tool as well.
Yeah. Again, our design is not to judge what you do. It's just to give you the ability to do what you need to do.
Exactly. Okay. So I'm going to turn on another feature. So I'm going to go back in here, and I believe this is under Bang Reconcile Pro. Turn this off. So this one's called highlight edited transactions. I'm going to click on save, and then I'm going to go into my reconcile screen. And then I'm going to ask Mark to explain this one again, because I personally yet to understand the premise as to why this was built. It was fairly easy to build, so we built it in there. But maybe Mark, you can explain to us exactly why this feature was built.
Yeah. So basically what happened is this. I had a call with somebody and they're like, oh, I have a client who, after we clear something in the bank feed, like we put something into the bank feed, they would go through and they would change one of the transactions from the bank feed to like a different number or something like that. And what happens then is, if they do that, is that your reconciling will basically never match up at that point. Like from then on out, it's just never going to match like what QuickBooks has versus what you have. So they're like, I wish I had a way to know which ones my clients edited. And so this was basically our solution to that problem. Is you can now see which ones have been edited, which might have changed, which shouldn't have changed. Yes, you have that going on.
So I'll click on that. So if I click on edited transactions, it will highlight.
This is a sample company that we use a lot of. So every transaction we have in here is an edited transaction.
Right. But what we can do is, I think what we could do, this is 1250. We can go into banking. Let's go into banking, and let's look at 1250, and we'll create a new transaction. Okay, we'll create this one. Okay, and then we'll go to add. So basically, we did it from bank feed. So whatever was created from bank feeds, that means it was created once, it hasn't been touched. So I'm gonna go to add. So that was 200 something thousand. So let me go into reconcile. Go back in here, and there should be a transaction for.
It was a transfer, so.
Yep, that's fine.
It's possible it's being annoying on you.
Okay, so that was April at some point. So that would be here somewhere. Just refresh. Hold on. That was a different bank account.
It might have been a different bank account.
Yeah, it was a different account. That's okay. Let's go back into transactions. And let's do, yeah, that was super duper checking. Okay, hold on. Let me change this one. So let's do it. We'll do it again. Okay, let me resort and put a transaction that's more recent. Okay, so we'll grab this one. Okay, whether it's a transfer or not, it doesn't really matter. So we just grab any of the transactions and we add them or save them or create them. Just use the regular bank feeds workflow. Hold on.
And while he's doing that, I just want to put up a notification here. Yes, this is a little bit longer of a webinar because of the fact that we are making up for the fact we didn't have one last month. But there will also be a video recording that is put up on YouTube. So if you have to go, we understand.
Yeah, we got it. Some people only budget an hour or so, but yeah, we go by 90 minutes. Okay, so I'm gonna grab this transaction exactly how it came through bank feeds. You know, I can make a change. So just to be clear, I can make a change in bank feeds. You know, that's not the problem. This is not what we're measuring. We're not measuring whether you're changing things in the bank feed screen. We're measuring if you're changing them after. So I'm gonna click on add. So there's a transaction that's been added straight from the you know, from the bank feed screen. Then when I go reconcile, I'll refresh this. That transaction should show up. You should be able to see that transaction right there, as long as I have the right date in here. Okay, so let's reconcile up to
fair enough.
Somewhere in the future. Okay, so that's going to have a transaction in the future as well. Let me resort this by sorting. So there's a transaction. There should be a transaction I recently created, which is this one for 1757. Notice it's already been cleared because I added it through bank feeds. If I click on the edit the transactions button, it's going to highlight all the transactions that have been edited. That means that they've been changed at least once. Okay, and so the ones that don't have the red, they haven't been changed. They were created once, and that's it. That could have been done through the register, or that could have been done through bank feeds. It doesn't really matter. It was created around one. I mean, it was created at least once, and it wasn't touched. But if you actually notice that if I take this transaction, the 1757, and I edit that, okay, I can't do it on a new screen. But if I go in and edit it, and I'll just change something here. I'll just put a period, literally, and then save and close. If I go back into the screen and click on edit the transactions, that one's going to show edited as well. So that's exactly what it is. It's just measuring whether or not the transaction has been edited at least once. Okay, perfect. All right. Next one we're going to talk about is the ability to duplicate or replicate deposits. So that's going to be here on the Deposit Pro, and it's called additional deposit buttons. I wonder why we call it that. It's only
actually, we need to, we do need to change that because it's literally just one button now. Because we used to have that when it was the save button was also added in there.
Okay, yeah. So the save button on the deposits has been added through a different feature, and then this one's just going to be ability to copy deposit. So we'll just change the name of that, but it should be there in that same order. So we're going to turn that on, and then we're going to go into a deposit. Let's go into a deposit. And for a lot of people, this is going to be huge, okay? Because the ability to duplicate deposits wasn't really there before. So I'm going to pick a deposit that's been already created, okay? And then obviously, if the deposit contains specific transactions that have been applied to it, that's not really what we're trying to replicate. We would have to essentially replicate this piece, okay? So essentially, for most people, and I think this would be a good one to combine with the show hide on deposited funds. I think that might be just like the best way to illustrate it. But let's assume that we're looking at a deposit that has a bunch of information in it. So I'm gonna hide the undeposited funds. So let's say we're looking at a deposit that has just quite a bit of information, that because the deposit maybe repeats itself or whatever, right? It's a deposit that contains a lot of lines, and you don't want to do it from scratch because it has a lot of information here. I'm just gonna save a bunch of stuff here. So I'm gonna just do a regular save. Okay, let me just do a save and close. And no, this should be the same dollar amount. Yeah. So save and close. Now go back and open a deposit again. Okay. And so we're looking at this deposit. There's a whole bunch of information in the screen. I don't want to replicate it. Under more, there's no copy button, which is exactly what you expected it to be. So there's this thing called RightTool copy. Okay. And the reason why we didn't just add a copy button is because it wasn't like the save button where it's just hidden and we can enable it. There's actually a bunch of things happening behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
with RightTool copy, what's happening is the last transaction is being saved, a new transaction is being created, and then all the information from every line is being, let's just think of it, is being copied and pasted back in there, sort of in the same technique that we do with the journal entry batch edit or the copy down, like using the same sort of code that we use for that. This is happening. So essentially, we're able to like sort of copy and paste or duplicate a current deposit. Any comments or questions on that?
I don't believe so. I think we're
Okay.
good on that one.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about extended matching range in bank feeds. So let's go back in here and go to that should be under bank feed. Okay. All right. So this is called automatically extend matching range, and then it gives you a number to choose. Okay. But I have to actually uh, kind of show you. So I'm gonna go into banking, and I'm gonna pick a deposit, or any transaction. It could be a deposit. It could be a payment. Doesn't really matter. And I go to find match, and by default, when you find match, the find match screen only picks a very specific date range to use. I believe, if I'm not incorrect, I believe it uses 90 days from the date of the transaction. Right? Is that, Mark? Is that correct? It just uses.
Yeah,
So like
it's like
100 days or
it's
something
like
weird.
3 months back and then like a couple of days forward.
Right, just a random arbitrary number that they picked, right?
Yeah.
So like if you wanted to look for a transaction that's further than that, you have to like click in here, click back, and then go find it. I know it's not going to happen very often, but sometimes you have to go in there and do that. So what we've done in with this setting is if you turn that on, then you tell it how far back you want to go. So I want to go back, let's say 9 months, 12 months, whatever it is, from the transaction date. So when I do that, essentially what happens is this screen will look the same, but it will just automatically change that date for you. So basically just saves you that step. So we'll click on this and then go to find match. And you will notice that now it goes back, in this case, it goes back 8 months or 9 months, whatever I told it, from the original transaction date. It's almost always from the original transaction date. It by default it goes up 10 days in the future, but then it goes back, let's say, just 90 days. So this goes back whichever one, whichever however far back you want to go, and then and then the list of transactions that it shows you is expanded. So essentially that's what we're doing. We're just saving you that click of going back 2 months, 3 months to do a bunch of transactions. I think for people doing cleanup and stuff like that, that stuff becomes really useful. Okay. Next thing I want to show you is, and this is called transaction vendor customer detail link. I believe this is, again, I'm not sure if this is something that's in the register, but that's going to
No,
be an
this one is
account.
for like any transaction, but
Oh
again,
yeah, I know. Yeah, I know exactly what that is. Yeah,
it-
so it's under Accountant Pro. It's called Transaction Payee Detail Link. And then what happens is when you are looking at a transaction like an invoice or a bill or something like that, and let me just go back and do that. Let's say we're opening up a bill, but
well,
I'm,
Bill
I'm
was one of
looking.
the ones we removed it from only because of the fact that it was acting up and it was
Right.
acting a fool and it annoyed me.
All right, so we'll do with invoice. So let's say we're looking at a particular invoice, okay, one that has a payee in the top. Okay, so it needs to have a payee for this to work. There's this button that says payee details, and essentially what this does is it takes you into a new tab, and it opens up the customer, in this case the customer detail page, so you can make whatever decision you need to make. I'm looking at the invoice, I'm looking at the history, and then based on these two pieces of information, I can make whatever decision I want. The problem is, let's say for example, you were to start a transaction from scratch, and I say, hey, I need to invoice this customer job number 2. But like for you to like then look at the history of this customer, you would have to open up in a different tab the customer screen, look for customer 2 whatever, and then you can find it, and then based on what you're looking at, maybe make a decision on what you're doing on the screen. Only problem is that this needs to be saved for this to work. So the transaction needs to be saved for it to actually recognize the customer or the vendor being there. So let's say I'll just pick up an item at random here and put 0 and then save it. So once I save it and I'll refresh on it, there should be a link in the bottom to go straight into the customer detail or the vendor detail. Let me see, go back to the transaction here. And there it is, payee detail. So it'll go to the vendor center when it's a vendor. So in the case of a check or an expense, or it'll go to the customer center to that specific customer when it's an invoice or a sales receipt. In bills is not working yet because there was something in the bill screen that wasn't working. We'll go back and fix that. Yeah. So the last thing I want to show here is called remove, and this is going to be here, journal entry cleanup button. What the journal entry cleanup button will do is it will remove 0 lines from a journal entry. So sometimes what happens is we'll have a journal entry that has a bunch of lines with zeros for whatever reason.
This is a thing that specifically came from Megan Tarnow. She works with nonprofits, and she likes to import journal entries from a template. And when she imports from a template, she doesn't want to remove things from that template because she uses it every month, but she also is sometimes going to have zeros in certain locations for that month.
Right.
Right. So
I guess the lesson here is, let's say, for example, there's a bunch of transactions, a bunch of lines here that have zeros. Okay. The template needs to stay, the template needs to stay how it is. But for whatever reason, when we import it things with zeros. But the problem with zeros is that it will muddy up. It muddies up your report. So if you pull a report of whatever, okay, if you put a report of whatever, you're gonna see all these zeros in there, just like clogging up your report. And then again, you couldn't, for whatever reason, when you imported a journal entry, or you were maybe possibly duplicating an existing journal entry or working with a recurring journal entry, at the moment in time, because of the way your workflow is and how you type information is or whatever, you didn't delete the zeros, or maybe there's too many zeros to delete and you want to go in there and click on a little trash can over and over. So essentially what you can do is you can go back here and go to where it says clear 0 values. And actually that should probably say delete 0 value lines, because clear means something else. But so essentially we have all these things that have zeros on them. So when I go to clear 0 value lines, all the transactions that have, all the ones that have zeros,
unless it's just being weird today.
Being weird.
It wants to be weird. Okay, right. Fair enough. It looks like it's doing something. I just don't know what it's doing. Oh, is it just doing it one at a time? You darn thing. Okay, fair enough.
So in this particular, it did work. I just had to work clicking it a couple of times for it to work. I don't know why. Let me revert one more time and just see. So I have 30 lines in total. Yeah. So right now
it's doing it one at a time. That's just,
it's doing one at a time. That could be an easy fix, but for now it's working, and it just works at a time. And then look, no 0 lines. So perfect. All right. So that's it.
Building a extension, man.
Yeah, no, I know. That's it with the stuff that's been published as Pro. Then let's talk about the experimental features that we have in Pro. So these are available, but they're still under experimental feature. And we're gonna skip bookmarklet. I added that as a bonus just because just in case we have time. I don't want to go way over the 90 minutes, but I have a couple of YouTube videos where I explain that. But I do want to talk about the two specific things: changing the source bank account on registers and batch change customer project lines inside of expense transactions. So let's start with changing the source bank account. So let's go into a register. Okay, and this only works with deposits and sales receipts for now, or sorry, sales receipts and receive payments, correct?
Yeah, I am working on deposits for this.
Okay,
Yeah, but yes, at the moment, sales receipts and receive payments.
exactly. So I guess I'm gonna come in here. And
You
I'm
might
gonna
want to just go to, I want to say savings account. I have one in there that I know exists because I don't think we have many received payments or sales receipts.
on which account? Savings.
Like literally the very top one, I think. It's either that one or clearing. Yeah, there, see
Okay,
there, it's the first one there.
okay. So I'm gonna go to payment.
Like I said, we don't have
Okay.
many.
All right. So I'll add a couple here. So let's go to payment, receive payment.
And one thing as well is this is something that I discovered literally today is if you do not have it linked to transactions, like here you have it like linked to those invoices below. If you don't have it linked to anything, it will just stall on you and it just won't do anything. I'm fixing that tonight. So
Okay.
that'll be updated tonight. Just a heads up.
Right. So for context right now, I have these 3 payments, or it could be a sales receipt that was received and it was put on the wrong bank account. Okay. So the batch button that we have right now, it doesn't select, it doesn't change accounts. If the account that it would change, it would be the destination account, not the source account, right? So in this particular case, there really isn't any accounts that can be changed because payments all have to go to accounts receivable. So even if I wanted to change something in here, it just wouldn't work because all payments are always going to be accounts receivable. But what I want to do essentially is go back in batch and go into each of these and change this maybe to undeposited funds or change it to a different bank account. So we'll do that through this new setting. So I'm going to go to Beta Pro, and then I'm going to go here where it says register bulk edit bank accounts. Okay, and it says, warning, very early beta. Okay, we're working on that. Then we do that, and then we're going to click on save and refresh all tabs. And then to do this, we have to open a transaction. If I remember correctly, I have to open a transaction detail report. What is it? What's the exact process, Mark? You remember?
Oh, we're trying to do the changing the products or customer.
No. I want to change the.
Oh,
Oh no, wait, that's in the
no, yeah,
register. Sorry.
yeah. This
that's
is in the register still.
All right, so I'm gonna refresh. Yeah, that's different. Okay, so yeah, because we have two different batches here under the beta. So I'm gonna go back into the savings account, and there should be a button.
No, this one it's just batch. It's like you would just go to batch like you normally would. So if you press batch and then you select all and then you press edit. Now it gives you the option for this.
So you
what you're
that.
thinking of is a different one.
Yeah. Okay. So once you enable that additional feature, it's just like the batch editing feature, but it's does it have to be one of the things I have to remember? Do we need to combine this with this? Like, do we have to have the batch edit turned on for that one?
Yeah, it does need to be turned on.
So this is a combination. It's a real beta. So you have to have batch edit and register turned on. Then you go back into the beta and then you do the register bulk edit bank transactions. Okay. So you have to have these 2 turned on. Then you can go back into the register. You could choose the transactions you want to change. You go to change edit fields. You can only pick the source account. You can't do both source account and date or source account and payee. Like you can do any combination of things with except the source account. Source account works by itself just because it's its own
very
sort
weird
of mini world, and it's only sales receipts and payments for now. I think the process will be the next one. So then I'm going to go to close, and then I'm going to choose which bank account I want to send it to.
I always just put it to clearing account, but
or undeposited funds.
Yeah, and that's actually what it's for, is because people wanted to move things to undeposited funds.
Right. That's the most typical thing that people want to do is, hey, I didn't mean to put it there. I want to put it on undeposited funds. You go to confirm batch, click OK, and then it'll open up each of the transactions. You will open them up and change them for you.
Yeah, and this is what I was talking about. Every once in a while, it gets stuck. There's something going on here. That's why it's an early beta. Right. So I don't know if
you want to test it, this is, you're welcome to do so.
Yeah. But we should have an update for this particular problem today. So yeah, it's something about that first one, the 1,000 one, for whatever reason, it's being weird.
It's
But
getting stuck.
yeah.
But once it gets off beta, I mean, we only bring it off beta once it's like, working 100%.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one is bulk change customer project lines. Okay.
Yeah.
So this one does require the transaction detail report. Okay.
Yeah.
So, but you can get here from the reconcile, from the reclassify screen as well. So if you were reclassifying, and one of the frustrations that I think people have is, hey, I want to look at an expense and I want to change the underlying customer job on that expense. I want to add it because it's missing, or I want to change it. You can't do it on this screen. So we added a little link here, to essentially a transaction detail report. And in this transaction detail report has been configured specifically to work with RightTool to batch edit the transactions. So again, this is super beta. Okay, that's why it's sitting on the beta part. So I'm going to click on prep batch, and essentially what prep batch does is it goes through the cycle of all the things that QuickBooks needs to do before we can automate something. Okay, just because in QuickBooks you have to open a screen that contains the command to change something. So we opened up, essentially, I assume we opened an expense and a check in the background, so we know exactly what we're gonna change. So then we're gonna go to batch, and then we're gonna pick which of these customers we want to change the customer job to. So let's say I'm gonna change all of them to, let's say, Angela Richardson, or maybe I'll just do a couple of them. Let's just do these, and I click on Run Batch, and it'll go in there and it'll go to each of those transactions and add the customer job to it. Okay, so there you go. Okay, the transaction detail report that opens up by default hides all the transactions that already have a customer job. So like the first pass at this, or the first solution we're trying to solve, is missing customer job, just missing customer job. Changing it will require you to click on customize, go to filter, and then where it says customer, change it from not specified to something else, or maybe
Batman. I was gonna say try Batman. I kind of, when I was testing this thing, I put a lot of things into Batman.
On the Batman, okay. Let's see, we got Batman. Okay, so let's say we pick a particular one, and then we click on Run Report, and then we look at it and go, you know what? A lot of these are not supposed to go to Batman. Okay, they're supposed to go to a different customer altogether. Okay, and look.
I don't know why QuickBooks is being weird on this.
No, it's not being weird. I just have a weird journal entry with a bunch of zeros. Let me open that. Let me just delete this one.
Oh, fair enough.
Okay, I just have this journal entry with a bunch of zeros, which kind of proves the point why we want to clean up zeros from journal entries. Okay, so we have all these transactions where the customer job is Batman, but it really is not.
Oh, well, I think it's because of the fact that it's this month, and this month has been pretty quiet. If you add the time, the date to whatever.
Let me do select all, select none, then just put Batman, and then click on Run Report.
Well, and then change the date.
Yeah, to all dates. Okay. So these are all the transactions. We have some journal entries, some bills, some expenses. So sales receipts, like it won't change it in the sales receipt. Right? It's just not the nature of what this will do. But on expenses and journal entries, it should. So then we're gonna go to, my prep batch went away.
Press Run Report and then refresh the page. That's something I'll probably need to fix. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, we can probably start it back from the batch screen. Okay, let's just go back into reclassify transactions. Let's go to reclassify line level transactions. We did a lot of finagling with this report. Okay, there's the prep batch. I'm gonna go to customize, filter, and select a specific customer. And then click on Run Report. And then I'll go back a couple of months, click on Run Report. Okay, there it is. Okay, so then I'm gonna go to batch prep. Okay, then I'm gonna click on batch. Then this screen opens up, and these are all the ones that currently have customer.
Well, actually, these are pages being weird on us.
Okay, so these are the ones that are missing. These are the ones that are missing. Okay. So for the time being on the
It's a lot of
debate,
work.
yeah, for the time being on the debate, it's gonna work really, really well for the ones that are missing a customer job. Okay, we have to figure out how to like make this thing read the ones that we're not missing, like the ones that already have a customer job. But all these things are missing a customer job. I can assign them to another customer.
QuickBooks is just
Okay.
really trying to screw with me right now.
Yeah. Let me
I know why it's doing what it's doing, but it doesn't mean I have to be happy about it.
I think I know why it's doing.
Yes,
It's pulling up the list of customers from the current customize
it is.
filter. Okay, yeah. So right now, when you start this from scratch without running the filter, so like what we'll probably tell you is, for the time being, just avoid touching filters. I guess that's really the only thing I can think of, and then only work with the ones that are missing the customer job. Go to batch prep. Okay, and the ones that are missing the customer job are going to pull from your entire customer job list because you're not running the filters. Pick the customer job you want, select the ones you want to change in batch, go to run batch, and once these four are created, when this report loads, they should go away because they're no longer missing a payee.
Yeah. And one final thing to mention on this is that every transaction in QuickBooks Online has like two parts to it. There's the actual transaction part, and then there's how it kind of balances against it.
Correct.
We cannot change the part where it it's hard to put this into words.
The source. We can't change the source.
Yeah.
But that's fine because a customer job, a customer project line will always be in the destination line. It will never be on the source.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah.
All right. So that's what we work. That's the stuff that's in beta now. So again, it's in beta because it's still, working sort of rather strangely. And again, we're having the live feedback of people kind of tell us, okay, this is working, not working. This is so all these things. You probably want to pay most attention to not the stuff that's in beta because it's in beta, and then anything that just didn't work 100% right on the stuff that's not beta. That's stuff that is going to get fixed in the next couple of days.
Yeah.
Mark, do you have the new features that you've been working on active with the
Yeah.
shortcuts? Yeah,
Yeah.
I'll
I
give
can
you.
show that real quick.
Yeah, so I'm gonna make you host. So Mark's gonna show you some of the things that we're working on. These things should work much more smoother. We shouldn't even have to go through beta for these. You got
Yeah.
so these are shortcuts. There's a little shortcuts we're working on.
Yeah. Let's see here. This is not the page I want to be on. The bank feed is really the page I want to be on for this.
Right.
So yeah, what we're doing is we're making just little shortcuts in here. If you're ever inside of like a categorization, you can press Alt T and it will actually automatically create a split transaction for it, or it'll automatically click on the split transaction and put the cursor into paid to for you, just making it so it's really easy. You can just get right into working on a split transaction. That's one thing. We also have, if you wanted to like go through here and you're just checking in through all these, we're like, oh, this is needing to go to payee name. I can do that and then press Control Enter. Once I do that, it'll go to the next thing and then automatically select whatever the next payee is. So I can again go like employee, or let's try AAA construction.
So hold on, let's clarify this because there's a couple of things happening. So one is, if you select the payee, let's say hit tab, and then go select the category. Okay, you can do this all through shortcuts, right? You can do all down arrow, select category. You don't have to move the cursor. Let's just whatever you are. You don't have to move the cursor or tab all the way to add. You can Control Enter to add. So Control Enter adds the transaction, and Alt T opens up the split. So those two shortcuts are there. But the other particular thing about the shortcut is when, like, this is if you can scroll down to something that's not a transfer.
Yeah.
No, transfers are so dreaded. Okay, so then you do. Let's say this already has a payee and a category. Just do Control Enter. So that saves it, and also what it does, it automatically opens up the next transaction.
Yeah.
Okay. What we're going to be working on is to make sure that it opens up the next transaction, and if you have turned on the avoid restrict what's it called, restrict transfers, it should open it up and have it under categorize, and also hopefully also jump straight to the payee line.
Yeah. Which
Okay,
it's
now
getting there.
what about the payee creation? Is that do you have that active in this beta?
Let's go to the bank register because that one's the one that actually works. So yeah, if we come in here and let's say we add a check or something like this, we can come in here and we can type in new name person. If I press Alt C, it will automatically, assuming that everything wants to work for me, but it doesn't. So we're just gonna have to go like, yeah, have fun with it.
Are your shortcuts turned on?
Yeah, they're turned on.
Okay.
Let's go into here instead and see what I have. Nope. Really? You're gonna be this way with me?
Oh, you have the new one.
Yeah, let's just do that. Yeah, save that. Come over here and yeah, for whatever reason, it's just being weird with me.
Well, let's talk about the idea because it's obviously this is not live. So the idea is that Alt C. So let's just go through the two motions. So type a new customer name. Okay, and then Alt C would emulate the following: add, right? Switch this to customer, and save. So like one shortcut that would go straight to creating as a customer, and then Alt V if that works, the same thing. Add, switch it to vendor, and save. So it's just basically a shortcut to save you those 2 clicks. Right now, if you without it, you would have to, if you mark, you just type anything in there now. And if you type and you press enter, okay, then you have to tab once, switch to customer, tab, right, and then tab, and then press save. So right now, like there's a whole bunch of like clicking and tabbing you have to do. So we're hoping that maybe the Alt C and Alt V will do that. The other thing,
and once that is ready, it'll be in this little keyboard shortcuts area over here as well.
Yeah.
So
this is just we're experimenting with.
Yeah.
And in bank feeds, we did do something. It's a little bit different.
Yeah, because they're frustrating.
Yeah. So in bank feeds, let's say you go into one that's not a transfer. Again, transfers are like the bane of my existence.
Yeah.
So once you go in there, so let's say you type in a vendor name. Let's say you type in a new vendor name in there.
New vendor name.
Okay. So the way we did it is if you press enter, okay, in this screen.
Oh, my bad. Did the wrong kind of enter.
Yeah. All right.
I did control enter.
Yeah. So we type a new vendor name. So a new vendor 2. All right. You press enter.
Sure.
Okay. You're gonna get this drawer. Okay. But what we did sort of secretly behind the scenes without you noticing is that we focused the cursor. No, why? No, don't do that. Don't fix it like that. Don't fix it like that because it changes the dynamic here. So that we'll pick a new vendor name, however you wanna have it. Okay, and then we press enter, and then secretly without you noticing, what we did is we put the focus on the cursor on save. So if you press enter one more time, it creates the vendor. So prior to like once we release this, prior to this, you would have to literally click on save or tab like 17 times until you get back into save. So what we did was we defaulted the drawer to automatically go to save. So you could type a customer name, press enter, and it would save it for you. We wanted to do like control enter or alt enter or something that it would just do it for you, but it just right now it's not working yet. But that little thing of just changing the default cursor, the default cursor selection or the focus on save allows you to at least in 2 clicks create a new vendor name, which we believe is an important workflow. Mark, will be nice, will be interesting if we could do the same thing with categories. Like if you type a random category in there, just type, random vendor, random expense, just type it, random expense. Okay, so right now to create an expense, you have to press enter.
It's like random expense extra. Yeah. Okay, you're just really just going to go for uncategorized expense. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah. So if you do that, it opens up this screen, and and essentially nothing really good happens, right? This screen opens, and you don't even get the stuff that you typed in there. So it will be interesting. And the problem is, again, they're changing this screen, and they're also changing, like they're changing this screen, this screen, that the one that looks like this, and they're also changing to the drawer that comes in through the side. But like one of the things that I'm envisioning here is that you type the name of a category, and then you press one button or a shortcut or something, and it goes straight to expense. Like that's something that I'm thinking about doing, but again, we have to try it to see if we can do that, right? But that's the challenge that we have now, is that it starts with bank. So like it would be nice if it would just start with expense or something like that. And then other people are telling us that I think one of the things that they hate about it is that when you go in there and let's say you go to add new, and you already type the customer name and you change it, it changes it on the name for you as well. So we're trying to figure out, can we do it in such a way that even if you change what it is, it retains the original name. So we're thinking about that too.
Yeah.
So I think those are the only things that we're kind of thinking about.
I mean, there's a lot of things we're thinking about, but these are the
But
things that
that
are
we're
coming
actually
out soon.
testing. I mean, that we're actually testing.
Yeah, these are the only things we're currently testing. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you everybody that stayed through the super long update webinar. We covered a lot of stuff. We'll probably edit it, cut it up a little bit before we put it into YouTube. Any questions, or Mark, any comments?
I believe we are good. I mean, there's comments, but for the most part, I think everybody has been, just saying they got to go. So I think we're good.
Okay.
One final thing, I know everybody who's here probably already knows this, but we are implementing a new place for people to give feedback and features and all that stuff. Literally right here. So if you if you come into here, you can kind of come in, ask for stuff that you want to ask for, and you can also vote for things. And we're going to try and be a little bit better about being open about what we're working on next.
Mm-hmm.
There are certain things that are Hector requests that might not be showing up in here, but we will be working on them. But for user requests, I'm trying to keep everything a little bit straighter and not have everything just stuck in my head.
Yeah, I like that.
So yeah.
Can you copy and paste that link into the chat?
Yeah, I already put it in the chat for everybody.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll take. Although we like the Facebook suggestions,
we do,
because we can ask clarification. We can say, hey, give me a screenshot or whatever. Because sometimes you'll type something in here and it's like so abstract that it'll be like very difficult to know what it is, and that we need to understand under what circumstance and what screen and what use case and what you're looking at and what messy file prompted you request that. Like all these things are important contextually for us to understand how we can solve the problem. So that's why I like Facebook, because we can interact with screens, ask questions, and you actually see Mark and I, we like rationalize it a little bit. I asked Mark, hey, how do you envision this? Could this work?
Yeah.
I don't think this could work. Like
I would still recommend putting that kind of stuff in Facebook and then just coming over here to make sure that you're seeing things and voting on things so that I know what people like.
Yeah.
Because I'll eventually put everything in Facebook into here.
At some point, whatever we're working on will be here, and it will be upvoted, and it will be like we're working on it, right? So
yeah.
So and also for bug reports too.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right. I guess we can wrap it up. I thank you, everybody. We appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. Always love talking to you, everybody. Have a great
Bye.
one.